Armstrong, one of the most beloved members of the musical community anywhere that I know. I mean, internationally, you say the name Nigel Armstrong and everybody's face lights up. So Nigel Armstrong, our Santa Cruz Symphony concertmaster, thank you so much for taking some time and being with us today.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Thanks so much for organizing this. And gosh, I mean, it's great to be connected to Santa Cruz, to the symphony, of course, and in this time.
It's been an amazing pleasure to feature you as a soloist, to feature you with so many iconic concertmaster solos and so many memorable recital moments as well. And I guess I'm just so eager to let you, tell us in your words what those experiences have been like with the Santa Cruz Symphony and in that community. I mean, you've done repertoire as traditional as the Four Seasons, which was the first solo concert that we got to feature you in.
Thanks. Well, I mean, it's been a real joy to get to explore so much great repertoire. Some familiar, like the Four Seasons, which I performed before, and then some very new, like the esa-pekka Salonen and Violin Concerto. One thing I really appreciated about Santa Cruz, and really treasure about Santa Cruz, is just the kind of the warmth of the audience, I guess, and the support that one really feels from the audience. And I remember that from the first. I think the first public concert I gave with the symphony was actually a recital, if I remember, in October 2016. And you just immediately feeling the I don't know exactly how to describe it, but you really get a beautiful feeling from the audience, a certain type of energy and the support that's really meaningful for, I think, any artist. We have definitely covered quite a range, I guess, repertoire, just, I mean, with the orchestra in general.
It's been so much fun, talking to John Weinglass recently and him talking about how the solo that he wrote in the piece we commissioned from him, he had you in mind from the very beginning of even thinking of it. So not only have, covered a whole bunch of different subjects, but also repertoire that was written specifically with you in mind.
That was fun, that's right. The little Scottish fiddling-esque moment, kind of.
Exactly, yeah. We did a performance of Schubert's Death and the Maiden, Schubert's big minor string quartet, and it was arranged by Mahler for a string orchestra. And there was a moment where Mahler, through the various orchestrations that he does in there to give, sometimes it's just a string quartet, sometimes it's the full orchestra plus the basses, sometimes it's somewhere in between. And at this one moment where he made it just a violin solo, and you came out and you were doing the most astonishingly graceful phrasings I've ever heard. And you're just, there's certain moments like that in one's life where you hear something, you see a Bernini sculpture and you just never forget that poetry and the gesture of that, or you hear a phrase of music which is done so indescribably, exquisitely, according to something in your own interpretation, that it's just incredible. So thank you for leaving us all with so many of these types of moments.
That's a beautiful movement. Gosh, is it the...
if you could share with us a little bit about what it was like to inhabit the Salonen Concerto and bring that to life, because it's such a very, very recent work of art and so substantial, and among a genre where, you know, you just have some of the greatest works in ever composed.
I mean, it was a joy really to kind of to dive into something like that, where the musical language is very different than much of what I've played over the years. So it's kind of just the tonal languages, the inflections, the scales that are chosen, the harmonies. Yeah, it's really wonderful to. It was really neat to get to kind of dive into that. In terms of my own process, I worked from the score, which I thought was really just very helpful, especially for a piece like that where the orchestral part is so so large. Or pages where the full score, every line is filled up. Every instrument pretty much in the orchestra, or almost, is doing something. And so it's neat to visually get to see that. For this concerto, the first and the third movements are the more difficult movements, just technically. They're faster. In some ways, perhaps, especially the first, just all these kind of filigree of the violin, but it's such a beautiful texture of the violin, just kind of floating and shimmering, and it's like a darting fish or something like that, or a bird just kind of making its way, and then the orchestra adds these textures to it. So that it was really that took just going through the patterns, listening to it, definitely, just to get some sort of sense for the piece that way. And then repetition, certainly. I mean, I find actually doing mental practice, like either just looking at the score or kind of meditating on it, for me, I find that very helpful. You know, I feel very fortunate also for the rehearsal process. I think often in professional orchestras, you know, the concerto will maybe get 1 or 2 rehearsals, and that's it, you know, and then you perform. And I think we had 2 rehearsals on Wednesday, if I remember, and then both Friday and Saturday. Yeah, it was really, you know, I got to play a lot with the orchestra, which was, I mean, I learned a lot just that week, you know, rehearsing with the orchestra, for sure.
Even for, I know for non-musicians, to see the athleticism, the unbelievable dexterity involved, you know, we know how granular, how gradual that process is throughout our lives to, you know, take those steps. But even among musicians, you see a piece like this and they're watching you and they think, you know, you've made a deal with the devil. I know esa-pekka has talked about how one of the compositional horizons that he's most interested in is that real level of what's physically, humanly possible on the edge of concentration and virtuosity. You're on the edge of a volcano, but going 300 miles an hour. So it's Cirque du Soleil without the net. Ah.
Well. It's really a unique texture that esa-pekka Salonen creates with this pulse kind of going, and then the time signatures actually change around the pulse. So sometimes it's on the downbeat, sometimes it's on the offbeat, and so, or sometimes it's syncopated, and it's really this kind of stasis, but with this heartbeat, really, kind of that's going. For me, I remember some of the most touching moments there are a couple places where the trumpet and the violin kind of have this line together. I wouldn't have guessed trumpeted violin. Just the sound it creates, it's such a unique, they're almost, the violin in that register and the trumpet in that register, they almost sound like the same timbre, the same instrument. So it's like this really neat.
And then there's that absolute party of a third movement.
It's so rhythmic, and it's amazing. Actually, I think esa-pekka Salonen manages to go into quite a number of different musical worlds in the space of maybe 3 minutes. Little playfulness too. I remember the these little interludes of kind of different instruments kind of playing off of each other.
The last movement has so much review of the first 3 movements in certain ways, and also a very beautiful transcendent type of calm in at the coda.
The last part of the last movement, the very end of this. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of the concerto. Really, it's such a unique way to end the concerto. Basically, one goes from the absolute lowest note on the violin, an open G string, to one of the highest notes. The piece ends on one of the highest notes the violin can possibly play. Certainly one of the highest notes I can think of that ends the concerto. So we go from, I've got a little keyboard, here we go, to there. That's the last, so we cover this in this, well, something like that, not quite, but over the, not exactly like that, but that's the range that's covered in over the space of maybe a couple of minutes or a minute or so. But in such a beautiful, it's almost as if the violin could go higher. Like if the piece had continued, the violin would just keep going up and up. It feels to me. Just these kind of this beautiful little. It sounds different, of course, on a keyboard, but it's the violin, the sound of the orchestra and the violin kind of gradually grows and grows and grows, and then we reach this high note of the violin, and the violin actually stays on this high note for a bit, while the orchestra then kind of coalesces around this final chord, and then it's over. It's like it's almost as if it really is almost as if kind of one were to stop speaking mid-sentence or something. It's like something so incredibly important, and that's it.